What is going on? I uh I got double audio coming at me. I guess I can thank Instagram for that. What is going on? Shout out to all you guys for rocking with me on the live, especially those of you that got my notice on my other channel, on the Reese Waters channel. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to this here channel because I'm. Oh, really? It puts it at the top. One thing you might notice, I'm doing something a little bit different today. I am coming at you in portrait mode, and that is a nod to uh, the folks over at Instagram because I noticed that my Instagram live was grand opening, grand closing. People was filtering, people was filtering through that Instagram live like flies at a cookout. So as a nod to those of you that are on Instagram, this is for you. I'm coming at you in portrait mode, and I want to see exactly how this goes. Bear with me. If all of this works, then we will try portrait on Tuesday. So we'll see. This is the time to try things. I see. I already have a mention, a comment from Supervillain asking me what happened with the wife on Tuesday. Those of you that were not here on the Tuesday live, I was having a difference of opinion with my cohabitant, and I had texted and had yet to receive a response all day, and so together I crowdsourced a message to send in order to broker the peace with my cohabitant, and that did not work. That did not work. It turns out that the possibility that I raised, that I was overthinking it and that everything was perfectly fine was in fact incorrect. That was in fact 1,000% incorrect. The truth of the matter is I was in trouble, and my peace offering via text was not sufficient in order to thaw that ice. All good now, but there was a significant portion of the evening in which she wanted to thank Supervillain and not me for sending that text. So there's that. I appreciate you for asking. I'm going to. I have a very special guest that I'm bringing in, and I have a big intro that I want to give him. But as you guys know, I start every live with a couple of videos that help me get through my week. So I want to share a couple of those videos that help me get through my week, and why not bring in my guest to comment on those, Mr. Timothy Lewis. What is going on, my friend?
What's up, sir? How's everything?
Pretty good, man. I'm gonna figure out these. I'm gonna. Oh no, that's disrespectful. I'm gonna figure out the layout situation right now. Here's a couple of videos that help me get through my week. So here you go. Here you have a young lady rising up and dunking in a youth basketball game. And this helped me get through my week. I shared it on my Instagram. The reason why is because, as you guys well know, I have a daughter and a son. And a lot of my thoughts have gone to watching games with my son and making him a fan and throwing balls back and forth while he's in his little bassinet. And the reality is my daughter has shown at each point in each step along the way, she has shown an interest in whatever it is that I choose to share with her. And when I'm sitting there watching games, she cuddles up and watches it with me. I'm sitting here obsessing about trying to watch games with my son, and my daughter's like right here. And I need to remember that. I need to be mindful of that. And I need to not at this like crazy early stage be the one responsible for any sort of ceilings or limitations that she might feel. So that is why that was critical to me. Here's another one.
Are you here to visit someone too?
If you just hold your head down and ignore, she'd leave you the hell alone.
Hey, I said, are you here to visit someone at the hospital?
Bring back damn segregation! Leave me the hell alone!
My grandpa is in the hospital.
Oh my gosh, bless his heart. Is he okay?
I should have sat in the damn car. I don't bother nobody.
I don't know. He just not conscious.
No, the same thing happened to my brother-in-law last week. I'm actually in the hospital because my daughter fell.
Give a damn! Damn! They needs to hurry up and diagnose that nigga back there. I'm ready to damn go.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
I sure hope that your grandpa's okay. I'm going to be praying for him.
Bye.
Okay, I'm improving with these conversations. That wasn't even that bad.
Thank you.
Like, she actually a nice, cool lady. So, where are you guys from?
Damn lady!
We from Mississippi
I got
actually.
a cousin from Mississippi.
Go to the damn bathroom and sit. Sit for 2 damn hours if you have to.
Okay, now I shared that video because I 1,000% consider myself to be an introvert, and the levels that we will go, the degrees that we will go to not socialize with people is wild. I mean, first of all, the funniest thing about that video for me was when she says, "Damn, bring back segregation," which was the second. That was her second thought. That was her second thought. That's where she went with it. Yeah. And by the way, those of you that listen to when I talked about going to the Kennedy Center and being a part of the Mark Twain Prize and how that whole VIP. I think I posted that video about going to the VIP and choosing out whether to stay and that whole thing. All those mental gymnastics. Again, this is me being an introvert and me being borderline antisocial at times and beating myself up about that behavior, yet continuing to engage in that behavior, upset about what I feel like that's cost me, but continuing to engage in that behavior. By the way, Tim, if you have any thoughts, by all means.
I appreciate that planned escape to the bathroom.
Yes. Yeah. The plan is, do you know, and a lot of times I go into the bathroom, I'm annoyed somebody's in there who's taking a long time. I never think about the fact it might be another introvert who's hiding like I am. I want to be in there in private. It might be another one hiding like I am. I have spent a significant amount of time in bathrooms for no reason. That is me. Here's another introvert one. Other people, when they see somebody they know in public. Introverts, when they see somebody they know in public.
Don't run! Murife! Murife, don't run! Hey! Murife, don't run! Murife, don't run! Hey! Murife, don't run! Murife, don't run! Hey! Murife, don't run!
It said, legends say she's still running. 1,000%. 1,000%. And I'll end with this one. This was the last one. This is on the same theme. Here we go. This is introverts at parties.
Okay. Don't cry. The party's back. No, take that away from me. Okay. Don't cry. The party's back.
If you have never excused yourself from a social function, gone into the bathroom, looked at yourself in the mirror, and wondered whether or not you have any more left in you to give, I don't even know you. I don't even know. For me, I should put an alarm on my watch every 20 to 30 minutes. I just need
Check in.
Yeah, I just need to regroup. Are we good? Do we see it out? Is there a way I can leave this situation? That no doubt is me. So I just wanted to offer you those made me laugh and helped me get through my week. All right, Tim, I am ready to dig in with all that you've accomplished. Are you all good? You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. How you feeling about the portrait situation? I'm
I
still
like it.
trying to adjust. You like
I
the
think
portrait?
yeah, I like it a lot.
All right, cool. All right, we'll
I
try.
also I also don't have like a frame of reference, so I don't know the alternative, but you're looking good, looking clear.
Okay, here is the alternative. Oh wait. Oh, orientation settings are disabled while live. Well, okay.
It is what it
You know
is.
what? I love this. This is perfect. This is this
Yes,
is this
indeed.
is phenomenal for me. Um, Now it was appropriate and intentional that I led with those introvert videos because of how much I appreciate this gentleman that I'm bringing on. You guys have heard me talk about the retreat that I went to over up in Kripalu, up in the Berkshires last year, the Black Men's Yoga and Meditation Retreat. We had on Reggie Hubbard, who I've been talking a lot with, by the way. So he's going to make a return appearance. But you saw my sit down with Reggie Hubbard, who led that retreat. One of the gentlemen that I met at that retreat was the man who you see before you, Timothy Lewis, a mindfulness coach and embodied movement educator. All of the things that you have accomplished in your career are too numerous to lay out. I mean, we're talking about yoga, we're talking about self-expression, we're talking about teaching, and all the stuff that you've been involved with. You're a bit of a guru. I'll just go with guru. Does that work for you?
If that's the term that comes up for you. But listen, I'm no sage on the stage. I'm a student of life just like everybody else.
So the reason why I set that up the way that I did, and I said that my appreciation for you as such is because when I was at that retreat, and this is one of the interesting things because obviously you've been in more of these environments than I've been. You're a little deeper into the meditation space in the yogic world than I am for sure. But when I've been in those spaces, typically being the only black face, being the only brown face, and you feel that self-consciousness and that judgment that comes with being the only in a space. But when I'm in that space to connect with my inner self, when I'm in that space with the purpose of being present, then the things that are preventing me from doing that, right? My self-conscious fear that is preventing me from doing that are very obvious. And so that becomes a litmus test for me on exactly how effective I am at being able to truly be in this moment and to have a human experience as opposed to bringing in all these external things. That's like an obvious one, right? And so it's kind of like a scoreboard for me, how much self-consciousness that I fear typically when I'm in these environments. The difference when we went and going to this Black Men's Retreat is that the traditional source of that self-conscious fear was eliminated. But that does not mean the self-conscious fear was eliminated. It means that my reaction to the self-conscious fear was different because normally I say, oh, here that goes. All right, we're going to work with that. We're going to sit with that. We're going to see how much of that is really real, all of that kind of stuff. But in this moment, I am further judging myself and beating myself up about the fact that I'm feeling it in this moment, which is ostensibly an environment which was designed for me not to feel this. And so you being there, not that you knew any of this is going, then again, maybe you did because you are a guru. But you not knowing what's going on inside my mind, but the fact that you continue to reach out, the fact that you continue to engage, as I just mentioned, I'm an introvert and can be borderline antisocial. I know how hard those people are to love. So the fact that you continue to reach out and continue to engage with me just was so significant and so meaningful. And so that's one of the reasons I have the appreciation for you that I feel today. which was a very, I know that was a very long intro, but that's what I got.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it. And like you said, so often when we are in these unfamiliar spaces, it's common to kind of have this not only the initial reaction of what it feels like to be in that space, but then it's also the momentum that goes in a particular direction. So it sounds like what you were describing was kind of like a difference, or rather an increase in that space between like, yeah, I'm feeling this level of discomfort, but I'm able to stick with it. I'm able to stay here just a little bit longer and to, ultimately see, well, what could happen if insert the blank here, able to lean more into that curiosity. I appreciate you for having me on, for your receptivity to, me reaching out and just saying what's up sometimes.
Well, much appreciated. And let me start with right there with you, because for people that like me walk around with this backpack of self-centered fear, right? And you feel like the typical reasons for that don't exist in this environment, but you still feel the fear. Is it like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is permanent then? I guess this is just part and parcel of walking around as me. What do you do in that environment where you're like, wow, this is still going on?
Yeah, I think it depends on the circumstance and the situation, right? So one of the things that come up for me is um, this feeling of safety, and I say this word with the full understanding that, especially in our culture now, there's often conversation of safe space, safety, safe this, safe that, and oftentimes it's referred to in the external environment, and so it's important to have a level of awareness and also discernment of the fact that feelings of discomfort can register as not safe in the body, and that then can have an impact on the reaction or actions that come as a result. And so being willing to be honest with the self and say, okay, am I really not safe in this moment? Is all is well, and just kind of see how some of those things start to register over time, because walking, for example, that experience that you shared of being the only one in the room, I'll speak for myself. When I first started my yoga asana practice, which yoga asana, the actual postures, I definitely recall those moments of being in a room and, maybe the only male, maybe the only black male for sure, and having those feelings of discomfort, yet being able to just kind of sit with it. Now, when I say able to sit with it, that's not necessarily a superpower. It's something that, again, can be practiced over time. And so I think the more that we are able to put ourselves and willing to put ourselves in these situations of sitting through discomfort, the more it's like a muscle, the stronger that muscle gets. Now, this is not to say, go in the middle of a war zone and then that's the time to put it to test, because in some instances life will present those moments. And that's when we can start to tap into those deeper reserves that we've built up through doing the reps.
Now, I need you to talk to me like a third grader, because I basically am when it comes to these kinds these kinds of practices. So
Yeah.
I have shout out to Kit and the Misfit Toys, by the way. At some point towards the end, I'm gonna post the he drew me a logo, which was dope. That I think I'm gonna appreciate using on this channel. So you were talking about sitting with discomfort. Now, that's something that has been mentioned to me specifically with regards to my claustrophobia and how it expresses itself, sometimes when I'm on a plane or and on the subway train, instances or situations that are going to arise that I need to move through. Sit through the discomfort. Just know that your body is, or your mind is having an irrational reaction to it. And it's causing these feelings, and your body needs to sit with it. What does that mean? Like, what is sitting with it? Is it me sitting down and telling myself what?
Sometimes it's not telling yourself anything. It's like, for example, if you were to sit here and I say, what is the next thought you're going to have? Chances are not really sure. It's just going to happen, right?
Right.
So sometimes sitting with something is being with it in a literal sense, like not running from it into a distraction, not running, to avoid it, because oftentimes what we press against or what we try and push away is actually kind of exerting that same force in the opposite direction. So when we talk about sitting with sensation, sitting, it might be sitting in a particular way or just literally from where you are and just watching it as it moves, as it transforms. Is it the thought? Is it the feeling? I think this is a really good one for sometimes when we talk to people with chronic pain and we talk about sitting with sensation. It can be tough because the awareness is tuned more towards the presence of that pain. There's also a space where there might be just a glimmer of time where that pain's not there. But if we are not necessarily sitting with it, paying attention to how it transforms over time, is it more? Is it less? So when you talk about some instances of claustrophobia, getting curious, is it the same as when you're on an airplane or on a train? Does it make a difference if you're sitting next to someone or if you are, you know, by yourself? So I think curiosity is another place where we can start to lean into to be able to sit with some of these things.
That is really okay. I appreciate that. Yeah, I do appreciate that because that is one of those like practical things that has real application, and it's not one of those some of these psychological concepts unfortunately are like comedy in a way where it's like you can't really just try harder, right? That doesn't really work. Like effort doesn't just translate into success. Like it has to be a certain kind of structured and guided and purposeful energy that you're pushing towards the thing. And that's the worst. That's super annoying. It's one of the things that always annoy me about comedy. Oh, you mean I can't just try real hard and then everybody laughs? No, none of that.
It's the so one of the kind of thought experiments is like when you walk up to someone and you say, okay, don't look now, and the first thing you want to do is like you got to try that extra effort, like okay, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't
Mm-hmm.
look. Or don't think about the pink elephant in the room, and the first thing that comes to mind is some version of a pink elephant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's that kind of that seeming duality of if I push harder against this thing that I don't like, then the harder that I push against it, then it's going to go away. Well,
Mm-hmm.
again, like I said before, when we think about forces, and forces usually act in pairs. So if you go punch a wall, the wall, while it's not, intentionally doing it, while it's not alive, it's exerting a force back on your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So you can press against that thing and try, 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 but at some point there's some value to that word of surrendering, letting it
See,
be what it is.
I see we got a couple of comments here on Instagram. Pages Yoga said learning to have tea with the moments, good or bad, because they will change on their own. And Gideon 33, shout out to both of you guys, by the way. Pages Yoga sent me a very, very thoughtful email after the live last week. So I appreciate that. Gideon says, so sitting with it, that takes a certain level of self-awareness. Yeah, I would say it does take a certain level of self-awareness. I mean, I don't think I ever don't know that I'm in the midst of a claustrophobic fit or a situation. But yes, I do have to pull myself back from my natural inclination to run away from it. No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, a greater. I appreciate that comment on the requirement for self-awareness, because what also happens in exchange is a greater awareness of self, right? So
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily just this idea of like, oh, I need to be super super self-aware to be able to sit with something, but almost this realization of like I am going to become more self-aware as a result of sitting with whatever the thing is. I appreciate that a lot.
Now you've worn a lot of hats. You've done a lot of different things in your career, as evident by your extensive bio. So, if you just want to take the people through your professional, but also your spiritual trajectory and how those things intersect.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with the professional. I consider myself to be an educator at heart. I grew up with a deep passion for teaching in some regard. And I would say early on in my childhood, I knew that I would be a teacher of sorts. My experience was I was surrounded by, these very seasoned teachers who, by the time I had them, I mean, my algebra teacher was also my mom's math teacher. So my experience with those in a traditional classroom setting, they didn't necessarily look like me in terms of age. And so what I told myself as a kid was I am going to, practice medicine and do all of those things before I become a teacher. Well, as life would have it, I've definitely pursued that route. So I went to undergrad at Howard University where I studied biology and chemistry. This is also,
HU.
you know,
All right. And
this is
finally, I
also
got somebody that's going to answer that. I just be yelling it into the ether.
not this way, not this way. It's gonna land. So while I was at Howard, I was also introduced to the world of research. And this really like blew everything out the water for me because for me it lended itself to a level of freedom and self-expression that felt genuinely right in the sense that, and when I say right, I use that in the sense of it felt like the needing to know the answers to everything, needing to do everything one particular way, it felt more liberating. So as I went down the research route, more doors, more opportunities started to open. And so I was at the University of Chicago studying cancer biology. And again, I noticed this kind of tug of war between how I was feeling about the actual work and me pursuing that trajectory versus the outcome that I was getting. Now, a lot of times that's, typically where we kind of focus our attention is like on this outcome, this thing is not working out. And I mean, this is probably a little bit deeper conversation, but over time, what I was able to really figure out for myself is that that route in that way, in that time, wasn't for me. So I walked away. When I walked away, I actually traveled for about 6 months with a global education program. When I came back to the US, I started looking into the teaching profession because I said, well, what is the thing that I've always done that in some degree has come naturally? And it was teaching. So as I applied for different teaching fellowships, I always had really big eyes for urban spaces, the city. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. So when I look out into like the world, it was like everything was like, ooh, I want to experience this. I want to go here. I want to try this. I want to travel there. And so the one place where I felt like I could, settle, and when I say settle, it's like in that adult sense of like, oh, I got to get a real job. I need to like get serious about my life. It was New York City. I said, I can live in New York because anywhere that I want to go, I can go there from New York. Anything that I want to experience, it's probably somewhere in New York. Now, the reality is, once I moved to New York, I became very, very tightly knit into this like this cog in the wheel of, I wake up, I go to work, I do the thing, kind of that hamster wheel. And then after about 12 years in the classroom, just noticing where the expression of who I want to be in the world was expanding, was calling for more. I left the classroom in 2021, and what I do now is really help others to also lean into this greater level of self-expression. Mindfulness is the gateway, and it's literally evolving like all the time. So, my work in the world now is about helping people to really tap into a greater range of clarity for themselves, a greater source of energy so that they can have more freedom to live the life that, is really calling to them. So often there's kind of this tug of war between who we are supposed to be versus what we are being called to be. And
Hmm.
so that's the bridge that I help create. And science too is a really critical piece to that because like I was saying earlier about this approach that doesn't necessarily have an answer. Science is a lot like that, right? Science is a process. It's a way of knowing. And listen, we don't get it right all the time, but we can always, as long as we are drawing breath, and we can come back and try different things. That's why I say it's all practice. So in the content that I share, it's deeply rooted in this idea of the practice being that of mindfulness, if that sits well with people, the ability for mindfulness to be able to meet us exactly where we are.
And one of the things you said back at the beginning when you were at Howard, you said it would be a deeper conversation, realizing that this is not something that you wanted to pursue at this time in this way at this place. And but then much later, you talk about the idea of building a bridge to who you are called to be. And that's something that I really grappled with. I really was struggling with that last year when I was trying to decide what exactly my next chapter was going to be because there felt like so many possibilities, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. It's not bad to be like, man, I can't do nothing. No, I was like, there's so many possibilities and so many things that I feel like I could do. But each one of those things that I feel like I could do, by virtue of the fact that I could do it pretty well, seems like that's the thing I'm supposed to do. So I'm like, well,
Mm,
how do you measure and leverage all of these things? Like for people that are in any kind of crossroads, especially professionally, where they seem like a lot of good options, like how do you find that one thing that is what you are called to do?
hmm Well, I think, well, for me, what comes up is like you were saying, there are so many options which, can lead to actually the exact opposite. It can lead to situations of analysis paralysis like this. There are so many things that I could do that I literally can't do much. And one place that I invite people to start from is, especially when there's like this inactivity or inaction, to consider where the thoughts are coming from. In other words, like, is that thought, the root of that thought, is it about the worst case scenario? What would happen if I leave this job? Then is it, oh, I'm gonna, not be able to pay my bills. I'm not gonna be able to, sometimes we go down that road because our thoughts influence the way we feel a lot of times. So flip the script because the other side of the coin is, all right, I'm feeling stuck in this job. And yes, there are things that I could do. And so just play with the idea. What's the best case scenario? Who could I become if I'm not doing this in this way? Because within the context of the work, there's a genius in there. There's a person who is very well adept at, doing insert skill here. So that's one thing. The second thing is that, like, I think about this a lot with purpose. So a lot of people that I'm connecting with recently, talk about trying to find their purpose, find their purpose, find their purpose. And so again, zooming out from that perspective and just first of all considering, like, if you were walking around and you say, I'm looking for my keys, I'm looking for my keys, I'm looking for my keys, then that's to imply like they're over there, they're not here. So instead of constantly telling that story of I'm looking for my purpose, I'm looking for my purpose, choose to make yourself your purpose.
One of the things I picked up just from listening to you when you talk about do I want to be doing this in that way, or before when you said this wasn't the opportunity to pursue at this time in this way, it actually drives me back to one of the things that helps me when I'm in writer's block, right? Because a lot of times the thoughts just appear, paragraphs appear, jokes appear, references appear, but you have to keep in mind that every single word or pause is a choice. It's all a choice. So it doesn't have to necessarily come out in a paragraph block or even a line block. You can literally just take it line by line. And the reason why I thought about that was because of how you articulated doing this in this way or doing this in this way at this time. Like, we don't have to make these grand decisions to, to turn over the whole table of our lives necessarily. Keep in mind that each individual aspect is a choice, and you can include or not include that in how you decide to move forward.
Yeah. Something that you mentioned there, it made me think about like just the creative process in general and how diverse that shows up in our experience in our lives, right? Because like someone may look at um, an artist, a visual artist, and say like, oh, that's the model of creativity, a person that can draw, a person that can put it out in that way. Or, even with writers, oh, I'm not creative, so I can't write, I couldn't do that. And so I think exploring too, like what does creativity mean to you? Like stripping away and, even looking at the story that's attached to it. I like to do these kind of what I call seed thoughts. So take a word like creativity, just put it on a sheet of paper, and then just throw words around it. Create a word map. It could be sentences, it could be people, it could be expressions of creativity, and just see what comes up. And then start to, play around with those.
I had this thought. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but I'm just going to admit it because that's what this space is for. I had this thought the other day where I said, on my list of attributes, things I'm good at, things I have a natural inclination towards, on my list of attributes, I would put music like at the very bottom,
Mm,
along with socialization, clearly. I will put music way down. I can't sing. I played in the band. I was mediocre. I feel like I'm not necessarily musically inclined. But I was hanging out with my daughter the other day, and we were making up songs to a melody. And that's something that I do like very quickly. Just I'm able to ad lib and make up songs to a melody. And I was listening to her, and she was doing it. Like she was able to do this thing that I feel like I've always been able to do really well. And my mind started going, and I was like, am I actually good at music? Like, I was like, I assumed I was bad at music because I can't sing. But there's so many people involved in music that Timbaland can't sing. He's one of the Dr. Dre can't sing. They one two
right.
two of the greatest musicians we've ever seen. I was like, could I have been the GOAT of music? And I walked away from it just because I can't hold a tune. Anyway,
Right.
I'm embarrassed.
Right.
That's the real thought that your boy had this week. I do want to hit this comment from Instagram from Lydia Sandella, who said, you're talking about sitting with pain. She said, how I went through labor with no medication. I kept saying, what is pain? And really tried to understand what my body was telling me. And I realized it was pressure, not pain.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, that's magic. That's magic. And I like the word she also used, understand, because I feel like there are so many things that we try to understand here, right? Um, and like a lot of times the invitation is less understanding and having a greater understanding. So like she was saying, pain feels like pressure. Hmm. That completely like transforms things, right? Because that realization is like, you know, that might translate to a situation with a significant other that, oh, this person pained me, right? This person caused hurt, and being able to identify that feeling, that sensation, name it in a different way. Like there's a lot of opportunity that opens up with that type of awareness for sure. I love that.
Now, I really wanted to get into the space of everyday mindfulness with you, and I will do so by talking about the impetus of this conversation. So you and I were texting and checking in with each other as we do, and one thing I mentioned to you was that I've felt a block for a substantial period of time. And it was a while before I would even admit to myself that I felt this block. But my history with spiritual practices has been very sporadic. And so there's been moments in time where I'll adopt them and then eventually they fall by the wayside. That changed last year, before the retreat, actually, where we met, like sometime early last year. I decided that this next chapter of my life, in my mind, I decided this next chapter in my life required that I reach a higher plane of self-understanding and self-awareness. So I wanted to adopt these practices and actually make them, I know about impermanence, but like actually make them like regular, right? Like actually make them a priority, make them a real priority. And what I have, unfortunately, what I'm going through now is probably in the last, March, probably in the last 6 months. It's been a while, like 4 to 6 months. My daily meditation, morning pages has become rote. It really just has become rote. And I don't doubt that there's definitely benefits that I don't necessarily acknowledge on a daily basis to the fact that I just take the time and get on my knees and sit down. And I'm no doubt the last 4 to 6 months have gone much better because I did it, but I don't feel connected to the thing in the way that I used to. And I don't know and that was the impetus, I was texting you about this block that I'm feeling right now, because I'm like, well, I don't feel like the answer would be stopping, is this something that's just going to flow? Is it just going to come back? I'm like, I don't exactly know what to do when I feel like I'm taking the action, but not necessarily feeling the result or feeling as connected to it as I did when I decided that this was something that was going to be a major priority in my life.
Yeah, yeah, and that's huge. Um, it was interesting when you were sharing that too, because one of the things that came up for me was like this idea that, the newness of things wear off with time, right? There's a certain level of like energy and excitement sometimes when we start something new, and it can be this idea of like, oh yes, I figured it out. Like this is gonna be the thing. This is gonna be the thing that really, changes everything. So with our spiritual practice, I feel like that too has it can have that aspect of like, it's something that's very new and almost like shiny object syndrome.
Mhm.
And it's easy to revert into, this doesn't work, it's a waste of time, and not that you said that, but that can be an experience of some people. So one of the things that come up for me around kind of keeping with the newness is one, realizing that you in and of yourself, there are aspects of you that are different than you were yesterday. So I mean, certain things are going to, whether that be the experiences that you had, the people that you met, the interactions, um, in general, there's some aspect of you being a different version of yourself than you were yesterday, perhaps even just a moment ago. And so leaning into that sort of newness, that realization, because sometimes it's also a story of the mind that says, all of these things of like, oh, this is just, why am I still doing this? And those are important questions to ask. And again, to be able to sit with some of those too, like, why am I still doing this? And what I encourage to, especially, this is not advice for, this is not general advice. This is some of the conversation that I have with some of the clients that I work with more closely, is I actually invite them to stop for a moment and see what happens. You know, if it feels like this thing is becoming futile, or if it feels like it's not adding value to your life, then stop for a moment and test and see. I think about brushing teeth. It's not that we necessarily do it every day because, oh, I know I understand all of the benefits, and you know, at some point it has become this rote thing that we just do. We just do for the sake of doing. And then the last thing I would add is the opportunity to explore and to keep some of these practices new, even from a with a sitting meditation practice. Test out different variations, test out different ways of being with the practice. So often it's like I gotta do something different. I gotta do something, and it's like, all right, well, just be with the same practice in a different way.
Yeah, I've actually been looking forward to it warming up outside because I really want to start getting into some walking meditation when
Mm.
it's not brick, and I can really focus on being present. What I would love if I could actually go barefoot and put my feet to the ground, but it's too much dog pee outside where I am, so I can't do that. But
But
you
but
know,
is there a place? I'm curious if there's a place, maybe not exactly where you are, but somewhere where you can put your feet in the earth.
yeah, yeah, my parents' crib for sure. So I guess yeah, there would be a place I could do that definitely. You mentioned that you work with clients, and take me through that a little bit, and how people can contact you, and what some of the things that you provide are.
Yeah, so I work with clients both one-on-one and in group setting. I have a group program that's coming up that I'm super super excited about. I'll say more about that in a second. So typically with one-on-one clients, the type of person that I work with generally wants to in some way shift their relationship with stress. It's usually a person who again is looking for, I'll say more, and not necessarily from the sense of like wanting more things, but wanting more of the experience of life in general. So one-on-one coaching for me, really, I like to lay the foundation. I don't assume that anyone is either well or not well practiced. I like to lay a foundation that really starts what I like to call the ABCs. So you were talking earlier about goals, and so often, yes, we have these really really big goals, and maybe it's been the experience of some people. I know I have experienced this for sure, where you accomplish the goal and then at some point it's just like, all right, well, on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. So I like to break it down and really lay a foundation that I like to call the ABCs, which is the awareness, the B is for the breath, and then the C is for this multitude of choice that we have. So, one-on-one, the interaction gets into the weeds a little bit because so much of who we are is tied to a particular identity, and that comes layered, our cultures, our upbringing, and things like that. Um, and then, like I was saying earlier about with group programs, one of the things that has really called out to me even from the teaching days was really this ability to hold space for nuanced ways of thinking, what I like to call this unique individuality. And so I run group programs as well. I have one coming up for, actually, it's for young men between the ages of 24 and 35, which I think are really, really critical ages for men in general, especially in the time that we're living in now, where, again, just observing outside of, take any system or any industry, and it's probably not in the best condition. So it's really challenging to be a young man, especially going into some of these spaces, and really knowing oneself. So one of the questions that really was the impetus for me doing this was someone asked me once, what are the safe spaces for, or where are the safe spaces for men to go to, for self-development, for personal improvement, to really bring who they are into the space. And so I created one.
That is really cool, man. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do, here as well, is create a space for people to be able to come and have these kinds of conversations. But I'm really fascinated by obviously a lot of the core concepts that we've been discussing and that you teach are very old and come from a completely different time and place and a completely different people in some instances. But the application right now is one that I find to be um, particularly significant and particularly useful. I'm curious why, or I'm curious about your perception and your viewpoint on why young men, why people of color, why people in cities and inner cities, where you are, why does this have a specific application right now?
Yeah. I think for many reasons.
I know that was a very open-ended question. I
Yeah, no,
recognize
it's
that.
great.
Take
I
it where
love
you
that.
want.
I
Yeah.
love that. The first thing that came up, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna say it just like it landed. Like the world is on fire. The world is on fire. And at the same time, while the world is on fire, uh, this savior complex, in a lot of ways, is detrimental to the individual. Like there's this message that goes out a lot of times of, save the planet and save the world, and so often we are projected out into these problems that are astronomical beyond us when just taking the time to really tap into who we are, and the power that we bring into whatever the work is that we're doing, whatever the space is that we find ourselves, we have the potential to transform the world. Maybe it's for one person, maybe it's for a group of people, but we don't necessarily have to change the, the world itself. And so a lot of that is rooted in accountability and responsibility. And again, the layers are thick. The layers of culturation of the world saying who a person is or how they're supposed to show up in the world, the type of work they're supposed to do, the relationship they're supposed to be in, all of this messaging, the world is really, really loud. And so there's the need to, what I like to say, this is an acronym, FUCK, the noise, which is filter unnecessary chaotic knowing. Like, turn down the noise. And so there's a greater level of self-awareness that comes from that. And again, the ability to guard oneself, to be more powerful. Yeah.
What are some of the core tenets of what you would call everyday mindfulness that people that are watching can look to try and adopt in order to maybe not necessarily, thrust themselves into a practice, but just maybe create a better relationship with themselves and with the present moment?
Yeah. One of the first ones, tuning into the sensations of the body. So right now, in this moment, just take a moment and notice how your shoulders feel. Are they shrugged up towards your ears? Do they feel tight? Do they feel tense? Just noticing. Might also drop into the area around the jaw. A lot of tension we tend to hold here. So, and there are a lot of different ways. I also like to think about the hands, something as dynamic as the hands that often allow us to do the things that we're doing every single day. How are you holding your hands? How do they feel? Do you feel tension, tightness, a sense of looseness? So tuning into sensation of the body. The other one is implementing habits. So it can be as small. I'll share for myself. One of the most life-changing experiences that I had was diving more into hydration. And this is not to say that, listen, my hydration is not perfect, but I grew up in an environment where, I was drinking I'll say soda because I'm on here, but I grew up in a pop world.
It's
I
soda.
drank all the pop.
It's soda. Let's be honest. It's soda.
I drank all the pop. And as I started to learn more about hydration, I'm like, what would happen if, I drink water instead of pop? So implement a habit and it can be yours. Go for a walk. Wake up and, do a little stretch. Implementing habits. M, managing your stress, being honest about your relationship with stress. Again, we were talking earlier about this idea of making something go away. Could stress be necessary, right? So manage that stress, optimizing our environment, like exactly where you find yourself. Like if you notice that you are always surrounded by people, always giving and pouring out, think about what are the environments or the opportunities to be poured into. Are you pouring into yourself? Are you allowing others to pour into yourself? And then one of my favorite ones is really thinking about the breaks or the spaces in the day. There are many times where um, either switching between meetings, switching from room to room, these are opportunities, right? So those are just some of the things that really come up for me when it comes to like starting from where you are. So whether you're sitting on a train, sitting on a bus, sitting on a plane, is it possible to just tap into, bring awareness to sensation of the body?
You made me chuckle a little bit when you mentioned the jaw because it's so funny to me. One thing that makes me laugh almost every day because I do a lot of guided meditations, and probably 70% of them, 60, 70% of them at some point mention your jaw and unclenching your jaw and your tongue being at the roof of your mouth. And whenever that's mentioned, 80% of the time, maybe more, I do it. Even though
Yeah,
it's every day.
yeah,
Every day. I do it every single day. I have to be reminded every single day.
yeah,
So it's just
yeah,
kind of something that's funny to me.
yeah. And again, those moments of continual coming back to that reminder, that reminder. And I think the most liberating thing is when we can tap into those reminders and have grace, because again, a lot of times the energy that's behind, I don't want to say correction, but the energy that's behind this, like, oh man, I forgot, or it's shame, it's blame, it's self-guilt, it's these things that really aren't helpful to us. So being able to look at those situations in a lighthearted way, that too becomes a part of the practice. Because, like I was saying earlier, when my hydration is off, it's like, oh, I'm not beating myself up. It's like, okay, realizing, and then realizing if there's some corrective action that needs to happen. If there's something that I can, kind of shift.
Now, I would love if you could take us out with some kind of meditation, just for the people that are watching. You could take your time and think about that, because in the meantime, I'm gonna look at these comments that we got on YouTube, and just say loving the show by listening at work and can't always listen to the full hour. Gotta go, but thank you for the content. Shout out to you, Angela. Thank you so much for joining us. Supervillain, once in a while, I'll do the bare feet in the grass. Supervillain, I know you are in my general vicinity, so I'm assuming you do that out. I'm assuming you do that out at your lady's house when you got a little bit extra space, Supervillain, because don't be doing no barefoot around DC. You can't do that. Kid said, when I was a nurse, I took one day off a week to listen to music and cry. If I didn't do that, I would become mechanical in life and work, soulless. That's powerful.
That's so powerful, especially in spaces of, the giving profession, to know what you need to be able to recharge, because there's so much, especially in those spaces of giving, teachers, doctors, nurses. I don't want to try to name them all, but yeah,
Supervillain came back yesterday. I was waiting for my food order. I deliberately didn't look at my phone like everybody else that was waiting. I just decided to be present in the moment.
magic.
That's a quick one. That's like a quick, easy one. You get present real quick if you take
Yeah.
your phone out of the equation. Um, Typically, I use something on my phone to help me get present. So hustling backwards. All right, before you take us out, where can the people find you, and what do you have coming up? Anything that you want to mention or push?
Yeah, so I am most active on the social media platforms. On Instagram, I share insights and wisdom, different practices under mindfulness with Timothy, all one word. I also have a profile on the Insight Timer where I share guided meditations, and like I was saying earlier, for the men out there, especially between the ages of 24 and 35, I'm running my group program and it starts the second week in April. So that's a 6 week program, a combination of pre-recorded calls focusing on different subtopics. Each week is a group call, and then each man will also have an opportunity for some one-on-one coaching to go a little bit deeper.
What,
So all of that information.
I just totally dropped the ball because I'm going. I didn't mention to you that I was also going live on Instagram, but we should have co-hosted this on Instagram. But you know what? I would love to have you. I would love for this to be the beginning of a series of conversations. So we'll get that
For
right,
sure. For
for next
sure.
time. And shout out
Yeah.
to Auntie Melanie who said, "Oh, let supervillain frolic wherever he wants to frolic." Okay, okay. I'm just trying to protect his feet and his immune system. That's all. I'm trying to protect his carpet. All that. I'm looking out for supervillain. You know, frolic away. Um, as far as me, we'll be live again on Tuesday, next Tuesday, over on the other channel, Reese Waters, which, by the way, has a ton of content. Ton of content coming out. Remember, separation of church and state. I'm not going wholeheartedly into it, but just know MSNBC, I had some thoughts. As well as the reaction to the Key Bridge and the DEI. I had some thoughts. You'll see them. You'll see them over on my main channel. Probably starting today. If you look at my background, videos will be recorded within the hour. Don't worry about it, because my man Tim got me right, and now I'm ready to go to work. I've been fired up the barbecue. We ready to go to work. So I'm in
Uh-oh.
a good space. So you guys make sure you check that out, and make sure you follow Tim as always. And of course, back here live on Thursday. So we're here live every Thursday, and on the other channel every Tuesday. So make sure you check that out. And I have a short that I'm going to post from on this channel as well. So make sure you look for that. All right, Tim, you can take us out.
Let's do this. All right. So I'm going to invite this practice that I like to do. It's kind of three parts, but it's short. So the first thing I want you to do is just take a moment right where you are and allow your eyes to just kind of scan your space, looking around, taking in light, taking in different shapes and colors, textures, and just noticing. You might start to notice that you are maybe attracted to certain colors, or maybe there are thoughts that start to come up. And so, in a sense, all of these things are kind of like vying for your attention in this moment. You just allow that to happen. Just allow the eyes to scan. And so, whether that be the email that's coming in, the text message that needs to be responded to, this creates a boundary where you say no to those things in this moment. And then, if it feels comfortable, you can start to allow the eyelids to rest heavy, maybe bringing the eyes to close, and just noticing sensation of breath in this moment. Noticing what's real and what's true for you in this moment. Breath moving in and breath moving out. Notice where the body makes contact with your seat, maybe where the body makes contact with an article of clothing. but where the body makes contact with itself. And from this awareness place, we start to invite and consider what comes next. Maybe that is the task that's been calling, it's the email, the text message. Mindfulness teaches us not to push away anything. Following one cycle of your natural breath as the breath moves in and as the breath moves out. Bringing the eyes to open as you feel ready. And the same way that we went into the practice, just allowing the eyes to gently take in light, take in colors. Thank you all so much. This is amazing.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, especially the typically when I jump into a meditation is, and I'm trying to calm myself and steady myself when I'm already in the position. You know what I mean? As opposed to, that's one of the things that that actually Reggie did that I really appreciated is when we would sit down before a meditation, he would have you like rock back and forth and get comfortable and take a couple of loud, exhorts, and you did it like visually. And so I appreciate that as opposed to like, all right, now I'm, trying to snap my mind and body into that space. Like taking the time to giving myself time to get into that space.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a
Uh
car,
so go ahead.
or like a car traveling down the expressway. If it needs to, switch direction or do something, it needs to slow down. It's like driving down the expressway and then just turning the ignition off. It's how we treat our meditation practice sometimes. It's like we were just doing 50,000 things, sometimes literally, when we think about how the brain is processing information, right? So just to try to close the eyes, that kind of gets into that, what we were talking about earlier, that feeling of safety and discomfort. So yeah, momentum, slow it down, bring it in.
I wonder, and I'm gonna let you go because we've been going. But I wonder because when we were having the conversation about the block, and you said, open yourself up to changing aspects of it. I was like, well, I do it first thing in the morning, right? So I'm waking up and like I write first thing when I wake up, and then I meditate. I was like, I wonder if I did it like if I put more things in front of it, like just to kind of, if I just kind of sat for a little bit or like kind of gave myself some just mix up. Maybe I can do it midday, maybe midday. I'm very nervous about doing it any other time than first thing in the morning because I know how that goes. Okay. I know how that goes. Oh, I'm not gonna do it now. I know how that goes.
And then that too
So
becomes some feedback, a lesson.
yeah, that's true. That is true. Hey man, I appreciate you as always, and I learned a ton. I'm sure the other people did as well. Yolanda said, "Thanks, Tim," and also gave us that was a great trance. Thank you for
Mhm.
that. Hopefully, also was not at work, but even if he is,
Or
that's fine.
driving.
Or driving, yeah, hopefully, yes. That would be, yeah, that would be a bigger danger. Who's your jockey? Says my boy Reese. Keep it up. Hey, who's your jockey? I appreciate you. And make sure you come and join us every Thursday here at 2 A-Team. Unlearning is learning, and yeah, no doubt, unlearning can be the hardest kind of learning you can do.
Woo.
Unlearning is real. Who's your jockey? Nothing greater than time present. Yeah. I'm glad to have had more present time over the last couple of years, but miles to go before I sleep. But hey, man, I appreciate you being on the journey with me. And again, man, I really hope that you come back. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a series of conversations.
Absolutely. Super, super grateful. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Thank you all for watching. I'll see y'all on Tuesday.
Take
And
good care.
subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.